watching Let's Chat.
Finally, I decided I'd say something. I said, John, let me ask you something. How come black troops in World War II fought so miserably? They surrendered, they didn't fight very hard. He said, Frank, where'd you hear that? I said, my father told me that. Now, John could have said, your father's an idiot. If he'd said it, the conversation is over. I never would have gone anywhere. He didn't say that. He said, Franklin, I don't think you and I know enough about that to discuss it intelligently.
That piece from a story CBS Network did on our next guest, talking about a lot of things that are uncomfortable to talk about. Franklin McCallie is here joining us. Franklin, good to see you as always,
Thank
my
you.
friend.
Thanks,
you were among the first to bring up integration at the school that bears your name here in town.
I bear its name.
Well, your parents' name. What was the reaction like when you brought up the subject of integration?
Well, my brother, Spencer, my older brother, and my cousin Jim had already been talking about it to my father. But the summer I came back, 1968, Chip, I went to my father and I said, you know what, I'm ready to teach at McCallie School. I'm looking forward to it, but you got to integrate. My father said immediately to me, I can't integrate. Those people can't do our work. I said, Dad, you don't know any black people. He said, well, I know C.C. Bond. I said, wasn't C.C. Bond a brilliant, wonderful man? He said, yeah, but he acted like there weren't any others. And we had terrible arguments. And finally one day, in our 10th argument in the summer of '68, he looks at me, we're sitting almost this close.
Right.
And he yells at me, and he said, why are you all saying the same thing to me? And he meant Spencer and Jimmy McCallie and my younger brother and younger sister and me. And I yelled back at him, I said, Dad, you taught us the philosophy, love thy neighbor as thyself. We're just implementing it. And my dad got very quiet. I thought I'd reached him. And then he said, I can't do it. So I went over to the school district and applied at Howard. And Bill Murphy and Cliff Hendricks took me in. I taught English 2 years there. Became the first white assistant principal because the judge said, you're going to put white assistants in the black schools, black assistants in the white schools. I had 3 great years. Some of the most memorable years I've ever had.
And this was at a time where racial discussions were like literally walking on nails.
They were hard. They were tough.
It was tough.
It was tough.
You've seen a lot in your tenure as not just an educator, but as a citizen here. What do you think Dr. Martin Luther King would think of the way race relations are today, right now, January 20th, 2020?
He'd be depressed. He'd be so depressed about it, I think. He'd be so sorry. Dr. King did 2 great things for us, I think. First, he told us what was wrong. The Montgomery bus boycott. He said, look, we can't sit, black people shouldn't be sitting on the back of the bus, the disrespect. He told other things. But they turned around and also gave us hope. Talked about the dream, 1963, the dream speech. So he told us this is wrong. He never feared to tell us what was wrong. In Memphis, right before he was assassinated, the sanitation workers, I am a man, I am a man. And he was there to say, they're being treated wrong. But he was also there to say, there's hope if we all get together and do this for each other. He wanted us all to do it together. He would look at us today and say, oh, the split is terrible.
A long way to go.
Long way to go.
What does this day mean to you? Because you were very active still in your career when the day officially became a national holiday. What does this day mean to you, Franklin McCallie, personally?
I look at Martin Luther King. I know he's not living. I know he died. I know he was assassinated. But I look at him still, Chip, as living today. His dream, his hope, we can't sit back. King said, listen, hatred and bigotry are not the worst things. It's silence. Silence is the worst. He quoted Joachim Prinz, a Jewish rabbi who also talked at the '63 March. Rabbi Prinz said, in Germany, during the Hitler days, he was there. He was a rabbi during those days. And he said it wasn't the hatred. It wasn't the bigotry that was the worst thing. It was the silence of all the Gentiles who didn't help us, who didn't speak for us.
We only have a minute or so left. A quick question. By your own admission, you were a racist
I was
back
racist.
in the 60s.
Yes.
You had your moment of light where you changed. What would you tell others to look for as being their light, their moment to change? We've all got to get along.
We've got to, somebody's got to listen. And this black kid in Memphis, Tennessee, 1961, who listened to me tell that story about black soldiers. I didn't know anything about black soldiers, and I told a lie. I'd heard that they weren't any good. And he looked at me and he didn't say, "You're stupid." He didn't do that. He said, "Franklin, did you have uncles who fought in World War II?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I so did. What did they fight for?" I said, "Freedom, justice." He said, "So did mine." And then he said, "You ever shop in downtown Memphis?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "So do we. After you shop, where do you eat?" I said, "I eat anywhere I want."
Got to go way out of town for the folks who were.
They went 2 miles out of town. And Chip, it hit me. And what I say about that young man, he didn't call me names. He didn't get in my face. He listened, and then he said, "Look, this is the situation. Do you see?" And I saw it, and I changed that minute. One of the great days of my life.
Franklin McCallie, always a pleasure. We're going to get you back here before next ML King Day. Fascinating gentleman, fascinating story. You can find out more about Franklin McCallie. Do a quick Google search. You'll be surprised at what you find. We're back with more coming up after this.